Aviv Ezra is a seasoned diplomat who has represented Israel across the globe. After the October 7th massacre, he was ushered into the role of acting Consulate General to New York for Israel. The following is a conversation we had together a few days ago about all that has occurred and how it has been having to sit in that role. Straight into it. After that which occurred on October 7th, you were thrust into this position and asked to do what you can to represent the state of Israel and try to tell our story. How has that experience been relative to the work that you've done prior to being put in this position?
The feeling is that it brought us to a peak, because for many years, and I've been doing this for almost 25 years, the idea was to really, first of all, cultivate these relationships with friends of ours, activating the base, people that care about Israel, people that care about Jewish identity and Jewish life. And that's in all aspects of life. It could be political, it could be media, it could be campuses, it could be Jewish work, non-Jewish friends of ours. And October 7th brought us to that point where you need to leverage everything that you have learned and known, how to make it in terms of bringing a difference to the front, which is not the military front, but actually the public diplomacy front.
And how much is the word responsibility integral to those long nights that you spend, I'm sure, and those long hours that you've been spending day in, day out since October 7th?
Responsibility is not just the technical elements of the long days and long nights, but rather the ongoing thoughts of how you want to be able to further communicate the narrative of the state of Israel. So if our goal is actually to bring more legitimization to the fact that Israel needs more time, and we're now almost 100 days into the campaign, how do you keep communicating the narrative? How do you communicate the narrative of the hostages? The fact that we have, at this point, 136 hostages that are held in the dungeons of Hamas, maybe exposed to physical torture, mental torture, sexual torture, and how do we make sure that this remains on the decision makers' tables?
On a personal note, may I ask if you have any relation or know any of those 240 names or the 1,200 who suffered those difficult fates on October 7th?
So I have a few friends that, of course, some of it's like, it's like two degrees of separations. You always know somebody who, unfortunately, was hit, hurt, killed, sometimes kidnapped. So definitely have friends that I'm familiar with. But to tell you the truth, there was the specific story that I think the entire state of Israel is also easily attached to what happened, which is basically the Bibas family, the red-headed family, especially that baby who was 10 months old when he was kidnapped, and now he's celebrating a year in captivity. He needs to learn how to crawl in captivity. He needs to learn how to speak in captivity. It's just mind-boggling.
So I assume those are the stories that you try to portray when we're speaking to diplomats from other nations whose nations are vehemently against us continuing to defend the state of Israel. How much does that affect them on a personal level, and how much do you feel that personal level affects their nation's decision making?
I think when you're coming to tell the story, it's one thing when you tell the strategic element of it, you tell the entire story as a whole, but then you have to zoom in. And I think one of the horrifying story that needs to be told is what happened vis-a-vis the sexual violence. And the New York Times came out with a big piece about it. And when we try to zoom into the stories, target audience could be either ambassadors or consul generals or other colleagues of ours or media people. And we always ask them the question, what would you do if it was your daughter, if it was your sister, if it was your mother? And then it dawns on them. When it becomes personal, the understanding is that Israel needs to do what Israel needs to do to extract and save these hostages from where they are at this point.
So veering off this kind of topic, when walking into your office, you mentioned the flag which is behind us, which was salvaged from the devastation of 9/11. Being the Consulate General in New York, how integral is that message of defeating that which we are up against? And more importantly, how much do you feel the city of New York is behind our thorough campaign?
Well, 100%. I mean, obviously, we're fighting against a very cruel enemy. The magnitude of the atrocities, the nature of the atrocities, the fact that there's going to be a long war against them. It's not just because of what happened October 7th. It's because Israel is fighting for its life, but Israel is also fighting for its values. And the values are the same values that are shared right here in the United States of America. We are fighting for freedom. We're fighting for liberty. We're fighting for democracy. And the stories of our 9/11, because the atrocities of October is actually similar to our 9/11, and actually magnitude is maybe 10 9/11s, reflects directly with the story of 9/11 right here. Only with one, I would say, crucial element, that your enemy was across the Atlantic Ocean. In our case, the enemy is very close. It's actually 1 mile from where we stand. So this flag that, as you said, was given to us and was 9/11 in one of the Twin Towers, reflects the fact that America shares the same challenges that we share, and the support that we are receiving from the American administration and from the legislative branch shows a bipartisan, bicameral, transcending administration support because of shared values and shared interests.
Talking about the congressional branches and Washington, how have you felt the bipartisanship affect this campaign? And do you see that shifting relative to your 25 years of experience prior?
So one of my most, I would say, comforting experience was when I traveled to the rally in Washington, D.C., that rally of support for Israel's right for self-defense. And I had the ability to join about 300,000 people that came very peacefully, as opposed to other demonstrations that are happening in our neck of the woods here. And the message that came was not just this huge, strong, unbelievable support vis-a-vis the 300,000 people that attended that rally, but mostly on one scene that I saw on the stage, and that was the scene where Speaker Johnson stood hand in hand with the Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries next to the Majority Leader of the Senate, Senator Schumer, and the Republican leadership of the Senate, and together, in a bipartisanship manner, emphasized that not only Israel has the right for self-defense, but the duty to defend itself. And I have to tell you, these four people don't agree on a lot of things nowadays, but when it comes to Israel and the connectivity to the U.S. and the bond, I think they're standing hand in hand.
So you talk about that connection between Israel and the US, but we've found anti-Semitism has increased tenfold in the past couple of months. How hard are you working for Jews in general in the United States to try to shift that tide back?
So I think you're right that October 7th was also an event, a junction in history where masks were torn off, not only in the Middle East, but also right here in the United States of America. Unfortunately, we see a huge rise in anti-Semitic events. The ADL is talking about hundreds and hundreds of more anti-Semitic events against Jews and Israelis. It's not that anti-Semitism was invented October 7th, but the fact that it's coming out in this way, shape, or form puts in front of us a mirror that we need to push back against these kind of events. And I'll tell you, I think that there's a huge support for Israel across the public opinion here. We do have a challenge within a certain segment of the population, the 18 to the 24, and we see it in campuses, we see it in social media, and we see it in the demonstrations in the streets. But I have to tell you that I'm less concerned about the demonstration in the streets. The numbers are not, I'm not concerned about these 300, 400 people. I'm more concerned about the content. They are calling for the genocide of the state of Israel. They are calling for the eradication of the only Jewish state of the Jewish people. And when they chant from the river to the sea, best case scenario, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know which river or which sea. But the worst case scenario, they are literally calling for the genocidal destruction of the state of Israel. And this is unacceptable.
When you hear that call for the destruction of the state of Israel from the river to the sea, do you feel as though that is their ultimate goal, that's their mission, or once they achieve from the river to the sea, they'll come for all Jews around the globe, followed by all democracies and all freedom across the globe, to ultimately put the entire world under their auspices?
I believe that Israel is the outpost for democracies around the world. And therefore, I believe that Israel is fighting the wars of the values of all the free world. And if that assumption is correct, I think the free world has an interest that the values will stand strong in Israel's war against the other side, who is representing barbarism, representing radicalism, representing call for tyranny. And to tell you the truth, at the end of the day, for many weeks now, we're focused on the Hamas-Israel war. But the truth is that if we zoom out, we could see the real picture, because we see that it's not just Hamas, it's Hezbollah in the north and the Houthis in the south and pro-Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq. And the truth is that if you take all the strings, you see they're attached to one head of the octopus, which is the Iranian regime. And the Iranian regime needs to be accountable for that.
So do you feel we, at this point, need to go all the way towards shifting the tide in Iran? Or can we just stop at, okay, we've dealt with Hamas, or just stop with, okay, we've dealt with Hamas and we've dealt with Hezbollah?
I think one lesson that we have learned from October 7th is that if we kick the can down the road, believing that everything will be okay, so the feeling in Hebrew, yeh beseder, if we continue to kick the can down the road and not address the challenges head on, we know it will not end in a positive manner. We've seen that October 7th. The same goes in the northern front of Israel. If we will not be able to protect our citizens that are on the border, and we will kick the can down the road, there will be strong consequences against us. And the same goes to Iran. If we continue to kick the can down the road when it comes to Iran and not make sure to hold them accountable vis-a-vis sanctions, vis-a-vis the UN Security Council, vis-a-vis other precautions, we will find ourselves in an October 7th event, with Iran. But in that case, we'll have military capabilities that will be a totally different ballgame, and we do not want to get there.
Fair enough. Thank you very, very much for your time. Is there any other ideas that you'd like to touch on while the camera's here? Anything topic that I didn't specifically veer towards?
No, you touched upon it, but I do want to once again touch upon the fact that the hostages is a huge priority of ours. Every person who serves one soul in Israel, serve the entire world, and we will make sure that all of our hostages, 136 of them, will be brought back home. We're beefing the pressure on Hamas, because we believe that that is the only mechanism and leverage that will bring Yahya Sinwar for a deal. That's the only reason he agreed for the first cycle of hostages swap, and we will continue to make sure that he will not threaten Israel once again after the end of this military campaign.
Well, touching on the point of the hostages, let me ask you this on a personal level. That video of 4 of the hostage girls was released and broadcast across the globe. On a personal level, forget your position, forget your ties to Israel, forget the fact that you're a Jew. What did that have to you internally?
It's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because you see, first of all, because I have a daughter. So the first thing that comes in mind is what would happen if it would be your daughter. And the second is the fact that we are dealing here with, I don't want to say animals, these are people that take babies as POWs, Holocaust survivors as POWs. They use rape as a mechanism of war. This is not about freedom fighters. This is not about politics. This is about pure evil. And they will pay the price. Like the President of the United States said, justice will be served. But I do want to emphasize this is not about revenge. This is about the future, about making sure that we could continue to live safely on our borders, either in the southern part of Israel or the northern part of Israel. And this is what this campaign is about.
So many of those 240 hostages were, like you said, young, elderly. and most often from the left wing. Can you elaborate on how much they just don't care who you are, what you are, or how you feel? They just ultimately have a hatred that, and you can tell me how it can be dispelled.
You know, when you ask Hamas, like if you would theoretically have the option of asking a Nazi, does he differentiate between this Jew or the other Jew? He would say that they're all the same to him. Hamas, in their charter, Article 7 and Article 12, calls to kill every Jew and Israeli and to eradicate the state of Israel. Actually, most of the kibbutzim around the Gaza envelope were very, very leaning to the left wing, and they were constantly helping Gazans to get treatments, medical treatments, cancer treatment, helping them in economic various ways, hosting them. And Hamas proved exactly it. There's no differentiation between Jews or Israelis. It doesn't matter what you do. They want to kill you because of who you are. And this is something that needs to dawn on us. And in Hebrew you say, אם אנחנו לא תלויים אחד בשני, if we don't depend on each other, אנחנו נהיה תלויים אחד לשני, אחד ליד השני. We'll be hanged one next to another. So we need to depend on each other. Hamas miscalculated the fact that he thought that given everything that happened vis-a-vis the judicial arguments before October 7th, we are weak, but we proved to him that we are resilient, we are united, and we are willing to fight for our values.
Do you feel as though the international world look at Israel, who are now the stronger force when it comes to this current battle in Gaza, and is confused morally because they see the great attack, they see us as being the victims of the 20th century, of the 19th century pogroms and so on and so forth. But now suddenly we're defending ourselves, and they don't know how to put that in their mind. Do you think that plays a role
For who?
for the international community?
For international community. Look, the major difference between what happened in the 40s and between what's happening now is not the fact that they say that every door kamim alenu lechalotenu. They want to kill us every generation. So that's not something new. But the difference is that 75 years ago we didn't have A, the state of Israel, sovereign independent state of Israel, and B, we didn't have the ability to defend ourselves by ourselves. And this is where we're standing at the moment. We will not be, once again, exposed to these kind of pogroms without the ability to defend ourselves.
I'll leave on this final question. Being in the position that you're in, I'm sure you are privy to some of the more difficult footage of the hostages and of that which occurred on October 7th. On a personal level, how hard has that hit you, and how much have you changed in this past several months?
It's heartbreaking. It's ungraspable. It's unimaginable. Israel's created this clip of 47 minutes that we show many of our colleagues here in decision-making echelons, either media or campuses or consul generals or ambassadors. And I have to tell you that for me personally, it's too difficult to watch these 47 minutes. I stand in the first 2-3 minutes and I come back for the last 3 minutes. Specifically, there's a scene here that really breaks my heart about a father that was killed in front of his children, and having to see the conversation between the two siblings, or the two brothers after the father has died is too much for me to really be aware of. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to defend ourselves and our emotional status, and we will have to make sure that this never happens again.
Thank you very, very much for your time.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.